drinking water. Today, Sir will be presenting on the topic Community and Mobility, Urban Transportation Planning System in the Context of Climate Change. We request Professor Ramachandraya to address the session. Sir, you could
Hello.
start the
Yeah.
session, please. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Madam, for introducing me. Sorry for the technical delay and some difficulties. I have been having this problem only with the Google Meet. With Zoom and WebEx, I had no problem, but let us hope. I'll be focusing on, the mobility issues, the transportation issues in cities, and how it can alleviate global warming or climate change issues. I'll be taking the example of Hyderabad city, and which is relevant to most of the cities. Uh, I have some slides, and towards the end of it, if the moderator can put some questions, we'll carry with that. About climate change and global warming, I don't want to say much. It's very widely discussed, known. I'll try to save some time on that without getting into the details. In 2010, about 35% of GHG emissions are known to have been released by the energy sector, 24% from other, agriculture, forestry, those sectors. It is 14% by transport. That's why I try to mention that. This includes all transport. Now, when they try to adjust it to the, who uses the energy, and where, then the energy, the share of industry and building sectors goes up to 31% and 19%. Regarding the cities, there have been estimates that, how much cities contribute. Electricity may be produced elsewhere but consumed in the city. Products are produced elsewhere but consumed in the city. Apart from the fossil fuel burning in the city itself through our motor vehicles, a number of sources suggest about 75%, 75 to 80% of all the GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, are attributed to cities, but this is disputed. Says it is unfair. Something may be produced in the city, but may be consumed elsewhere. So, and it is mostly to the carbon dioxide that the cities emit. So, taking into account, where it is produced, where it is consumed, from outside into the city, city into outside, etc., roughly 30 to 40% of all GHG emissions are attributed to the cities. That itself is a huge percentage. So cities can do a lot through their activities, lifestyle changes, to reduce GHG emissions. There is a quotation by next slide, please, by Enrique Peñalosa, who was the former mayor of Bogota city. Next slide. Next slide. I think I have been going faster than slides. This one. He says, to make a big impact on climate change and reduce global warming and sustainability, etc., a lot depends on third world's 22 mega cities. Basically, he was meaning that in many big cities are there in the developing countries. These cities can do a lot to reduce dependence on cars, so that pedestrians, streets, sidewalks, parks, etc., supported by public transport, can make a big difference. Previous slide. The one before this. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Slide number 6.
screen, ma'am.
Slide number 6. Actually, I did animation to these slides. So if the animations are gone, if the whole slide is visible, it's also okay. Hello, shall I continue or wait and hello?
Sir, please continue, sir.
This slide number 6, if it is visible on the screen, it will be. So what do we do to encourage mass public transportation in cities? Or what should be the main components of a mass public transportation system in a city? Cities should be able to provide safe footpaths. Wherever possible, cycle tracks should be available. If you look at European cities, cycling is promoted in a very big way. People should be able to cross the streets safely, safe pedestrian crossings. At least during peak hours, buses should get priority. Wherever possible, where roads are wide, it will be dedicated bus lanes. And wherever it is still required, rail-based, trams or metro rails or surface-based system should be available. Why do we need all these? Is that it saves time, cost, less pollution means better health, less noise means more peace of mind. Noise is a silent killer. So more peace and better social harmony, when people live with these kinds of quality of life. In all these modes of transport, walking is very crucial. Even to reach a bus stop or a metro station, one has to walk. So walking should get the utmost priority in all these kinds in the public transportation system. Next slide. This is quickly, if you take a look at it, this is about more than 10 years old, but broadly relevant even today. This slide shows in different population size range of cities, what is the main mode of transportation? Walking, cycle, two-wheeler, public transport, car, IPT, intermediate paratransit, taxis, autos, like that. If you look at Hyderabad, which is 40 to 80 lakhs range at that time, even if you take 80 lakhs range now, category 6, Hyderabad JHMC area is supposed to have about 1 crore population. See, 22 to 25% of people still walk to go to their place of work, mostly. Is a destination, whatever it be for anything. Cycling, still with a lot of difficulty, 8 to 11% of people of the total commuters are cycling. Two-wheelers is a big one, 9% is less. See, as the cities become very big, then two-wheeler percentage goes down a little bit. But Hyderabad is about 22%, lot of motorbikes. Public transport, Hyderabad is about 42%, the total share. Here it says 22, and 42, so we can take that. What is interesting that I request you to notice is cars constitute only 10% of the total share of mobility. So what we are seeing today in Indian cities is majority of people walk, majority of people also take public transport, buses, and two-wheelers. Large number of middle class youth take two-wheelers. A small section still use cycles, but only about 10% of the cars occupy 75% of the road space on the roads in the city. So when we say there is a traffic jam, it's not because there are more passengers, it's because more cars. So without addressing the car issue by various policy measures, there is no way one can address urban transportation issues and thereby climate change issues. The next slide shows, as per the census of India 2011, this is for Hyderabad, broadly JHMC area. I request you to see 2 and 3 and 5, on foot, bicycle, then car, jeep, van. This also gives about distance traveled. So large number of people are walking, 2 to 5 kilometers, 6 to 10 kilometers, 32% of the total people who travel 6 to 10 kilometers, 32% are on foot. That's what it means. So the all modes is 100%. Of the 2 to 5 kilometers distance that people are going to their work or wherever, 27% are walking. That is a huge, huge numbers. People are just walking with all the risks that are involved in walking. Next major one is the motorcycle, scooter, moped, this thing. But you see the car, number of people are still also using bicycles. In the 11 to 20 kilometer distance also, people are going by bicycles. A number of poor workers, who take their lunch carriage with them, with whatever work implements they have, they pack it to the cycle and go, up to 10 to 15 kilometers, finish their work, and with all the risk involved, they still keep coming back. They may not have right bus connection to those places. They cannot afford private transport, so keep going. But if you look at the cars, it's only about, even in the 21 to 30 kilometer distance that people travel, cars are only 9%. More people use by bikes, and there is a section of people going by bicycles also, probably in the outskirts of the city. But all the next slide. So what does this indicate is roads are becoming sites of inequality. When the state is a major provider of transport space, roads, the state is providing the transport space in a very unequal manner. People who are walking and cycling, who don't cause any pollution to the city, who occupy very less space, and whose number is very big, they are pushed into the margins. And cars which emit more pollution, which carry very less people, occupy more road space, are getting all the priority. So the investment in urban mobility, if we take the last 20, 30 years, flyovers, parking areas, road widening, even the existing pavements are also removed. These are all focused towards mobility of the private vehicle in the city. So who decides these, that there should be a flyover here? I'll come to that towards the end. 10 days back, Telangana IT and Urban Minister, Mr. KTR, laid a foundation stone at Indira Park for a steel bridge, if some of you have followed. Steel bridge from Indira Park to VST via RTC Crossroads. Now, who decides this? Was there ever any demand from any section of people that they need a bridge here from Indira Park to there? No. It's simply because contracts, flyovers, and the car lobby. To enable cars move faster, all these factors coming in. So the decisions are basically political decisions. So urban transportation is a political issue, not a technical issue. It all depends on when you are bringing a new intervention, who benefits from this is the crux of the ideology of transport. In Hyderabad, what are the main modes of transport for us? I'll quickly go through them. Is the RTC, next slide. APS RTC is the backbone of public transportation. It has about 3,000 buses. Now, of course, we are under lockdown. Carries about 30 lakh passengers every day. Many of at least half of these buses are not in good condition. They ran out of their passenger life, kilometer life, because after about 10 lakh kilometers also it should be abandoned. But because government is not helping RTC to add buses, they are pushing them. Ideally, as per the national service level benchmarks, there should be 50 to 60 buses for every 1 lakh of population. If we take that as a benchmark, Hyderabad should be having at least 5,000 buses, ideally 6 to 6,500 buses. Bangalore has 6,500 buses, and those buses carry 50 lakh people every day in Bangalore city. Hyderabad, we are woefully short of buses. About 8 to 10 corridors in the city are estimated to carry much of the load. So if you take care of these 8 to 10 corridors, much of the traffic problem can be sorted out. When vehicles move at relatively better speed, the fuel is burnt fully and the emissions will be, intensity of emissions will be less. Average trip length is about 7 to 8 kilometers in Hyderabad, which is ideally suited for a bus. But it is very poor infrastructure for buses in terms of bus stops or bus terminals, change of buses. If you get down by one bus, you want to go say from Amirpet to Himayat Nagar, if you want to go, there's only one bus called 113. You can take any other bus, get down at Laddi Kapur, take another bus coming from Medipatnam to Himayat Nagar. One can go. But if you have to change a bus from one to the other, is very, very, very unfriendly to the passenger, the way our bus stops are designed, etc. Quickly, I'll show you some photos. Next slide. The difficulties that students face in the outskirts of the city, going to engineering college, etc., under the bus stops, during peak hours, kind of difficulties people face. These are all from the media reports, and this is a scene every day in Hyderabad. Next one is also a similar one. This is an everyday scene in the city outskirts for students and young people, because they can't afford to be late and you don't know when will the next bus come. And all the outskirts, if you go towards LB Nagar or any of these Uppal side, you'll find this during peak hours in the morning. Lakhs of commuters going this, and this is a global city, 1 crore population city, one of the top 6 mega cities in India. Every day, there is never a shortage of talking about the city as, world class, what else and what not. Next one. It all depends on what we are prioritizing. Whether one before this Sunday, whether we want to prioritize what. The same road that is available, you can't go on widening the road. Whatever road widening has happened, the additional space has been occupied by cars. So can't we prioritize the bus, at least during peak hours? Officers and politicians who visit Singapore come back and say, we will make this as Singapore, that as Singapore. But other than doing a pleasure trip to Singapore, what is that they learned from Singapore? Singapore penalizes rather than, it is more, it's charges, I should not say penalizing. It charges private vehicles for using certain roads during peak hours. It's basically to discourage you that, you can avoid this road the next 1 hour because public transportation has to move. And we don't do anything. We are rather weakening public transport day by day. Next one. This is a flyover built at the Greenlands. This is an everyday scene. Now there is this photo was taken before the flyover came. Now we'll also, before the metro came. Now you also will have the metro across from Begumpet side to Greenlands. But even when the metro was there, the cars have not come down on the road. What is that you did? You built a flyover with public funds, made it even more difficult for the bus on the road, and it is filled. So how many more flyovers you will build? So this is the state of RTC. Low priority, absolutely it is allowed to decay. We have seen how the government's attitude was when RTC was on strike in October, November last year. Next one small mode of transport we have is MMTS. Next slide. This MMTS is basically the local trains running on the existing railway tracks. Those of you who have noticed it or traveled by it. The first phase of 40 kilometers was completed in 2003. It carries about 1.5 lakh people a day. during working hours. This was the main mode of transport to number of IT people before the metro came. Now probably it might have come down a little bit in the numbers. This is also the cheapest mode of transportation. I believe in 10 rupees people travel from Lingampalli to Begumpet or so. It is a joint project with 1/3 by railways and 2/3 by state government. Now, after 2004, this in another 1.5 to 2 years, the second phase should have been completed, but state governments never bothered who came to power after 2004. Recently, there has been some progress with railways showing some interest, but state government is showing a very lackadaisical attitude towards the MMTS, whereas it can carry people to outskirts in large numbers. MMTS coaches are wide, broad gauge coaches, to accommodates more people at low cost, but state government is not at all bothered. Next major flagship project that Hyderabad has been witnessing, heavily marketed, supported, is the metro. Now, this is now almost 2 years, that the 2.5 years, the first metro 30 kilometers, Nagol to Amirpet and Amirpet to Miapur was inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Now about 65.56 kilometers or so, close to 66 kilometers in 3 corridors, except the old city stretch of Imli-Band to Falaknuma. The entire metro is literally running in Hyderabad today, except this COVID time. Now, those who know me or have heard about me, I have been a strong critique of this project before. Why, etc. If there is time in the discussion, we'll get into that. What is the justification for such a large investment and execution of these projects is numbers, passenger numbers. Because the metros are high capacity systems, they will carry huge number of passengers. So as a corollary, as a consequence, vehicles will come down on the street, pollution will come down, etc., etc., etc. So they will have calculated a dozen list of benefits to the society. Oh, okay, let us take it in that. Now, in 2014, because this was supposed to have been completed by 2014, it was completed, first phase was inaugurated in 2017. Now it is all running for 2.5 years, including additional stretches, more than a year. It was supposed to carry 14.76 lakh passengers. Even if we discount for the old city stretch of 5.5 kilometers, but the stretch from High-Tech City, Cyber Towers to Rayadurg has been extended, which was not the original plan. So that way we can broadly say that at least 14 to 50 lakhs, even if 12 lakhs people should have been carrying. Now, if I extrapolate that 2014 figure to 2019 or 2020, now we are midway through 2020, the same estimate should now be around 19 lakhs. By 2024, it should carry 22 lakhs. So if we take that 14 to 22 high growth and account it for the last few years, today Hyderabad Metro, assuming that there was no COVID, should be carrying 19 lakh people. So the justification for all the problems that people faced during its construction. The people are told, wait for some time, problem will be solved. This corridor, that route is all going on, we have to bear with it. It's a huge development project. But when it doesn't carry that many number, at least even half the number, who should be held accountable? Is ever anybody held accountable? Or is anybody ever questioned why it is not carrying? No, we should not question. Because today Hyderabad Metro is more an image building exercise and more a marketing exercise. So how many people is it carrying? During RTC strike, what more a metro can have when the entire city bus system is closed? The best that the metro can have is when there is no other public transport working in the city. So maximum the metro carried is 4.5 lakh passengers in Hyderabad. Now, if we look at what we say, cat coming out of the bag, the metro MD says, this is what we were saying before, the red circled area. Next slide, Andy. Take it to the next slide. So the red circled area, he says that once the entire project is completed, this is 1 year before this item I am showing you, which is proved during the RTC strike, say that the entire project, when it is completed, we can expect a footfall to touch 5 lakhs. Now the same man, 4 years before, if you look at if you notice the previous slide is from the metro passenger estimation report. Went on saying that Hyderabad metro will carry 15 lakhs and then 22 lakhs, etc., etc. Today they are saying 5 lakhs, and maximum it could carry when the entire RTC was on strike was 4.5. So when the strike ended and RTC buses started moving in the city, our metro share came down below 4 lakhs, and that is how it is. Next slide, Andy. Another big damage I consider the metro has done to the city's public transport is, rather than complementing, the bus and metro complementing, it is unthinkable to imagine a common ticket where, like in any world global cities outside the country, you buy one ticket or one pass, you travel by different modes, bus, metro, tram, whatever in that city. You don't buy ticket everywhere. Unfortunately, in India, each one is seen as a competitor to other, which is again political. Politically, our leadership doesn't have interest other than executing the project. They just have no concern to the mobility of people. Metro is a high capital investment project. It is heavily pushed by the international railway companies, the bureaucrats in Delhi. So every city is having, you must have. This photo I am showing this is the Panjagutta from the station I have taken. On the left side, if you see, there is a bus stop at the mall, below the mall, on the left side of the road. You see, there is a bus stop. Now, by the way the staircase of this metro is designed and built, this bus stop has become useless now. It's unusable. Buses don't stop there. So ultimately, what did you do? The bus passenger is forced to walk longer and on an unsafe road. So like this, at many places in the city, metro stations and metro staircases have made the bus stops unusable and that much more difficult for the commuter. Next slide. So finally, what is happening to this metro? Now, COVID lockdown. Next slide. Initial estimate was 12,132 crores. Then they revised it to 14,000 crores. Officially, they say L&T has now so far has spent 21,000 crores is the cost. Per annum, their interest is 1,300 crores. Per annum revenue they are getting now is, both from the malls and the passenger revenue, is 480 crores, which is barely sufficient for managing. You must remember that this is a land and real estate based project. 269 acres of land was given to this. At about 25 to 30 places, prime lands were given in the city, like the one where the mall is built at Panjagutta, 1 year high-tech city, Erramanjil, like this. So they are supposed to raise revenue from these malls. So now they are raising about 10 crores from malls per month and about 30 crores from passenger revenue. So 40 crores per month, 480 crores per annum, which is barely sufficient for their maintenance. Now, how are they going to pay the interest first per annum and then the capital loan? So it's a huge financial disaster to L&T. So metro rail projects are capital intensive. They carry less people than what they promise and end up becoming a huge burden to the public and to the banks, 10 banks have given money loans to L&T. L&T is a huge company, so it is able to bring money from where it makes money in other projects and is running the metro in Hyderabad today. My point is, when RTC was carrying for 30 lakh passengers a day, MMTS is carrying 1.5 lakhs a day. And in this 21,000 crores, the state government of Telangana, AP, earlier AP, now Telangana, spent about 3,000 crores. If state governments could invest 3 to 5,000 crores, a much more comprehensive public transportation system could be built for Hyderabad, which will easily carry another 10 lakh passengers. Whereas here, to make that 4.5 lakh additional load, additional passengers, we have destroyed the streets of Hyderabad. We have caused enormous difficulty to people during its construction. And this kind of huge cement and steel that is used, and the air conditioning that is used, all these add to climate change and global warming. But these are also huge contracts. So the rest, you can guess why political parties love big projects, like the famous quote by books titled by a famous journalist Sainath, and why everybody loves a good big drought. Here everybody loves a big flyover or a big project. Next slide, Andy. Now, has anything changed in the last 6 years because metro was commissioned earlier? It has become worse the last 6 years. What are the priorities of the government today? Flyovers and underpasses. You take last 6 years in Hyderabad, not even 1 kilometer of footpath is added. You can't find 1 kilometer footpath in Hyderabad where you can safely walk. A footpath that is designed and built at reasonable standards and guidelines. But you can claim at least 7 to 8 flyovers have been completed, and at least 7 to 8 are under construction in Hyderabad city. One bridge across Durgam Cheruvu is being built. They want to inaugurate it for August 15th. And to make cars reach faster to that Durgam Cheruvu bridge, within Jubilee Hills, road number 45 deviation, they are building another flyover in a residential area. All these are meant only for cars. Probably 400 to 500 cars will travel by that way. All cars, all traffic to high-tech city, Gachibowli won't go by that. There are other routes. But our observation, based on our field studies or field observations in Hyderabad, is in the last 20-25 years, wherever flyovers have been built in the city, if you notice tomorrow when you are traveling and happen to stand closer to one of those flyovers, if you are welcome at Panjagutta or Greenlands, whatever, where our institute is located, wherever flyovers have been built, public transport has been pushed to the margins. So if you are building a flyover in a 100-feet road, that flyover becomes a reserved space, exclusive domain of a private vehicle, the car, and a few motorbikes. So the bus which has to pick up passengers from the road is pushed to the margins, to the side. So you have a bus, auto, pedestrian, all competing for a small space left beside a flyover, as if they don't deserve better. And this is the case. And where flyovers descend onto the road, it has become extremely difficult to cross the roads. There's one at Somajiguda near Lalita Jewelers, if you notice, at Greenlands from the Begumpet flyover, and many like that. Take Gachibowli, you just can't cross. I was asking you if you happen to pass by Panjagutta, you have 2 parallel flyovers there. Now there is a metro across, but everything is all pushed to about 20 feet margins on either side. And Panjagutta is one of the heavy pedestrian area, but you just can't walk safely. And to quickly, what I have been saying, Next slide, Andy. The flyover design problem at Gachibowli you have seen, the car falling off, etc. So flyovers everywhere. Flyovers are under construction. Class that. Next one is, this is the steel flyover bridge foundation stone laid 2 weeks back or so by KTR, and that's it. It goes like that. Next slide. This is, so far it is safe. This is KBR Park, a satellite photo. Government wanted to build, the present government, 6 multi-level flyovers. It's not just a flyover. Multi-level will be, they will be crisscrossing one over the other at all 6 entry junction points around around KBR Park, Jubilee Checkpost side, the entire Trust Bound side, Cancer Hospital, then TRS Bhavan, that Puri Temple side, Film Nagar side, all around they wanted to build multi-level flyovers. A number of activists have challenged it. I too extended my little bit of support to that campaign. Temporarily, it's saved, but you never know. Imagine the only big natural lung space that is available for Hyderabad is the KBR Park. And now you have imagine you will be having so many multi-level flyovers and cars going at high speed. Apart from damage to fauna and flora, what kind of aesthetic feeling, what kind of a peace and serenity can be there around the park or for people around when you have only the cars going? Buses won't take those flyovers because bus has to pick up the passenger at the bottom. So next slide, please. So we all extend support to activist groups. I too used to be an academic and activist. These days I'm participating less these activities. And one of the next slide, pedestrians, pedestrians account for 1/3 of fatalities in Hyderabad city. It is unthinkable that people walking and crossing road just get knocked out, including the high-tech city area. And government, the modern young minister, instead of being sensitive to this, they are promoting more of flyovers. We can see this. Can you click next slide, Andy? Next click. There is a photo. This photo I wanted you to see. I don't know how much you are before, Andy. Back. I don't know how much is it visible to you. If it is a big screen, it could be visible. Here we have, I consider it as a farce, Governor and KTR cycling from Khairabad metro station to Raj Bhavan. They don't even feel that people will ridicule them. You travel by metro up to Khairabad, you have entire the road blocked and all the security, etc., waiting there. And then you take these cycles and right to Raj Bhavan, and you are promoting cycling with this. But that is the kind of farcical systems we are going through today. We are living these times. Next one, only. This is again quickly. We go through quickly now. Death toll at traffic junctions. Major states where this is the United Andhra Pradesh photo. This includes cities and non-cities also. Next one. We have talked about this earlier also in a way. Road is what I wanted to argue is road is a public space. So road is a public space and road is limited in its provision. You just can't go on widening a road. So when it's like a lake, for example, or like a park, road is a public space, and it should be governed by the government in a way that there is equitable. And National Urban Transport Policy 2006 and 2014 talk big about, roads, equitable allocation of road space with people, not vehicles, as the priority. Nice words, but all that they do will be funding flyovers in the city. So, and is a new angle that has been brought in by the former Bogota mayor. He visited Hyderabad some years back. Is that roads are not just for vehicles. Roads are places for socialization. A large number of middle class and the poor, rich people may go to clubs and other places of gathering. But for middle class, to चलो वहाँ मिलते हैं, एक चाय बात करते हैं, kind of, so a footpath provides that kind of a space, and it deepens democracy. Footpath deepens democracy. Footpath unites people. He also says that some other place, footpath unites people, cars separate people. You can see for yourself, when you are driving a car, you come across other car, or someone in front of you, car is not moving as you expect. What will be your mood? Whereas if you are walking on a safe footpath, you will not feel antagonized or angry with a fellow walker. This is in Bangalore. I still feel one can walk very safely in Bangalore. At least I have walked 3 to 4 kilometers without getting scared of getting knocked down. You can't find even half a kilometer of footpath also in Hyderabad city. And how does this city claim to be itself to be a world-class city? What a tragedy is that. I have a few visuals of next one. And we are talking about, I was talking about pedestrian fatalities. 1/3 of pedestrians. I did a small study at SR Nagar. SR Nagar is a major traffic junction for roads. So what the Hyderabad traffic police did in the last 3-4 years is, which is extremely undemocratic, extremely anti to pedestrians and common public transport users, is they have closed the signals and provided U-turns ahead of the signal. So where you were taking a right turn earlier on a road, now that right turn is closed, that signal is removed. So if you are for a vehicle user, so you go little ahead, take U-turn and come back and go to your previous destination. So for a vehicle user, it is looking convenient because you don't stop at the signal. But what happens to people who are crossing the road? So when there was a signal earlier, people were able to cross. Now you remove the signal. You don't install a signal for pedestrians to cross. You don't provide a zebra crossing. You don't provide a red signal for vehicles to cross. This is there at JNTU, but at SR Nagar, Amirpet, these areas, it's not there. So thousands of students get down from buses on one side, go to the other side because colleges are located on the other side. Look at one early morning when a number of buses enter into the city, private and RTC buses, long distance, overnight buses. And it is at around 7:30 to 9 is the time, at 7:30 to 8:30 especially, 7 to 8:30 is when large number of students will be crossing the road to go to their colleges and schools which are on the other side. Even if one vehicle fellow does a mistake, the tragedy will be enormous. These are my photos, so I'm not even taking from the media. Next one is also the same one. Next photo. Here also, you look at this photo, the first one. Second one is where a woman was carrying a lot of difficulty, 2 bags, load, and you have to go through that. And when there is signal itself, our people don't obey. And where there is no signal and the road is wide, they raise the speed. And people on a wide road to cross, you need a minimum of 27 seconds. 27 to 30 seconds is the norm of even for the signal cycle for people to cross on a wide road. And this woman we have photographed, she waited for 5 to 10 minutes before stepping into the road because it was scary. Here, if you see, you also see the metro station, SR Nagar metro station in the background. And the other photo. What is the use? You brought in a so-called world-class metro to the city. You can't provide a footpath, can't provide a safe crossing. With the help of architect friends, next slide, we have even provided a design for SR Nagar. How a traffic junction can be designed so that where, when, who should cross. People will obey the traffic signals, but we still need a traffic constable to enforce, even if there are signals. But more before that, you need a basic design of a place. You design a footpath. I showed you the one in Bangalore. It is designed and built. The question of that footpath going away, road widening doesn't arise, which you don't have in Hyderabad. So it is not that solutions are not there, ideas are not there. It is simply because politically it doesn't matter, and as a society we don't bother and we don't demand. Next, and I'll quickly show you some of the road widening photos, and then we'll be ending this. These are the last 5 to 7 years. Roads widened 60 to 100, 100 to 150, 130 to 150. Thousands of structures have been raised at many places, but not even at one place was a footpath provided. So you are creating an additional road space by demolishing a building and widening the road, but the additional road space is taken over by cars and no footpath. So next one, and you can go on showing the next 2 3 slides. Same, next one. This is hundreds of trees were removed to widen the road towards the Tarnaka area, and we complain of global warming. What do we do? Is that Panjagutta? So the last couple of slides. See this next one. This is I'm quoting you from a report of the 11th 5-year plan on urban transport, report of a working group. Some of the well-meaning transport experts were anguished to see the metros being planned in every city. Vijayawada was talked about the metro. Recently, Hyderabad MD visited TTD for a darshan, and TTD chairman started talking about a metro for Tirupati. So that is how we are. What they say is these global mega cities like Tokyo, New York, these are colonial. New York, not colonial, but still old big city. They have a huge CBDs, central business districts, which provide about 7.5 lakh jobs. No other urbanized area in the developed countries has a CBD of more than 4 lakh jobs. So metro systems are successful where you have a huge CBDs and jobs. Indian cities are developing on the peripheries and are polynuclear. You have an LB Nagar, you have a Lingampalli, you have Uppal, and you have a Shamshabad if you go a little away. Kokatpalli for KPHB, for example. So thus they cannot feed mass transit systems of more than 30,000 PPHPDs, persons per hour per direction. Now when Hyderabad Metro was pushed, they said Hyderabad Metro can carry 60,000 PPHD. You are struggling at 4 lakhs. But all these figures are projected for propagation to justify the grounding of a project. So there is an international evidence to suggest that. I'll come to that later. So what Indian cities must do is must prepare plans for non-motorized transport and must develop plans for adequate pedestrian and bicycle facilities. All roads with a right of way of 45 meters, that is 150 feet. 150 feet is like say an Amirpet road or a SR Nagar road, must have a dedicated bus lane. And those with 30 meters, 100 feet road can provide a lane for public transport during peak hours. There are various ways in which you can restrict private vehicles during peak hours. Singapore does that. That is one model. Is there enough space for a lane here? I have several photos. I removed them to reduce the size of the presentation. There are designs which will show that in a 100 feet road, you can provide a footpath, a cycle track, 2 lanes for private vehicles and 1 lane for bus. Now, half the road, that is in a 50 feet. So it is entirely possible. It's all whether one has a political will or not. If the present government shows even 30% of the political will to improve road conditions and bus transport and the pedestrian facilities, compared to what they are showing on flyovers, Hyderabad can be a lot more livable city in the next 4 to 5 years. I was telling about the mega projects. There is an international evidence. There's a huge quote from an international journal. I removed it to reduce the size again. A survey of 258 transportation projects worldwide, mega projects of billions of dollars. Now and then, if you read Hyderabad Metro's promotion, KTR or the MD, they keep saying the largest public-private partnership project in the world. So what? Are you able to proudly say that my metro carries maximum number of passengers per kilometer of the track length in Hyderabad? No. What is the big deal if it is a largest mega metro PPP project? For L&T, it is a huge disaster, which they are not publicly saying. I know. I have interviewed the Metro's L&T's first MD in Hyderabad, who was signatory to the concession agreement, who was instrumental in pushing the project. He's retired. He's not in the city now. But I had a 2-hour-long one-to-one interview with him. But L&T has a large other construction projects, irrigation, roads, others, dams, airports, etc. as a contractor. So they are pumping money from there into the metro here. So what these project promoters do is an international evidence of 258 projects in which our metro also fits is, in the beginning of the project, the costs are underestimated, benefits are overestimated. As the project progresses, the costs go on increasing, the benefits will be less and less. And that's what we see here. So they promote and push these projects based on lies and false cost estimation figures. But because they are huge contracts, whatever may be the damage that these projects do to the city compared to the gains that they propagate, and because of the way our politics work, these projects get immediate acceptability. And the large middle class, become a fan of that project. Next one today, last one after that. A post-COVID city. We are in a situation where for almost 4.5 months there is no public transport in the city, no metro, no buses, no metro. Private vehicles are going. We have seen during the lockdown time how the air has become clean. Even in Hyderabad, city was visible for a longer distance. People in the Punjab, Haryana could see Himalayas. There's better rains, more cooling, no pollution. Can't we have a city like this? Even without lockdown? Not difficult, provided the political system has the will to see that things work out. Many jobs can be done from homes. I don't think any IT fellow employee has to travel all the way in the traffic jam to high-tech city. I believe some of the IT companies are thinking of closing down their offices, at least substantially reduce their office space so that they save on overheads. Then whom will the metro carry to Rayagada? Okay. Air-conditioned, governments are scared of opening cinema halls and the metros in the country. The fear is that in an air-conditioned atmosphere, the virus remains floating for considerable length of time, which means the obsession for air-conditioned auditorium, air-conditioned malls, etc., should come down, which will also reduce a lot of energy consumption and help in improving the climate. But the risk is that more and more personal vehicles. People will know that for me today, personal vehicle is the only safe vehicle I can't rely on. I can't even think of a cab. if I have a personal vehicle, because cab, you don't know who sat before me on the seat and it is properly sanitized or not. So that risk is there, that pushing of more personal vehicles onto the roads. But if there is a good pedestrian infrastructure, good bus infrastructure, bus-based public transport, even if only one person sits in a seat, by providing additional incentives to the bus still can carry a large number of people. You know, people coming from outskirts into the city, domestic workers, small employees, small self-employed people. They travel 20 kilometers one way to go to their place of work. They need public transportation, not the metro. So they need buses. So a good bus-based public transportation and a good infrastructure for promoting non-motorized transport can redefine the climate of cities in the coming years, provided the political leadership of the day shows that kind of vision, maturity, rather than building more flyovers in the city. I stop here. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. If any questions have come in the chat box, the moderator puts it, I'm willing to talk. Thank you. Next slide. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you for a wonderful presentation, sir. It's very good. We have a few questions from the chat box, sir, and we were from the participants, and we would like to ask you. So,
Yeah.
on behalf of the participants, will be asking you the questions, sir.
Yes.
Can we go ahead, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
The first question is, sir, can you please explain us any successful public transport project in Hyderabad, India, or international, sir?
Successful public transportation project means, I mean, there are various modes, bus, metro, tram, or whatever. Let us take buses. In the country today, of all the big cities, Bangalore alone has the number of buses that is required for the population of that size. And Bangalore carrying 50 lakh people per day means half the city's population is moved by the bus system. And that is a hugely successful one. Is there no congestion? Yes, Bangalore has a lot of traffic congestion because of cars, not because of buses. Now, it is the Bangalore's administration which has to see that buses get priority during peak hours, which is a huge political decision, which is not happening. But always I found when I visit Bangalore with our activist academic groups, Bangalore I found always a lot more advanced in thinking. The bureaucrats listen to the activists also there, and they start implementing. In Hyderabad, they just don't care. A few months back, in the Bangalore's ring road, they started experimenting with a dedicated lane for the bus. I don't know from which point to which point. So initially, you know, they were taking chance. They were experimenting. Let us say a bus lane, and slowly picked up, and there's a lot of patronage. People see the saving of time, saving of fuel cost, and slowly they are increasing the length of that bus lane on the ring road in Bangalore. And though they have 6,500 buses, they are trying to increase that number to 8,000 the next couple of years. Whereas here we have 3,000, half of them outdated, worn out, and nobody cares. It's one. BRT, bus lane, dedicated bus lane system, is doing reasonably well in Ahmedabad. About 65 kilometers of bus lane system where, you know, you take a ticket at the stop itself and just enter into the bus. It's called, in Ahmedabad, it's called Janmarg. If anybody is interested, you can Google Janmarg Ahmedabad. They will show that, and you move faster. I have traveled in BRT in Indore, where 11.5 kilometers of BRT, dedicated bus lane, built at less than 200 rupees cost, because, you know, you have to build some bus stops, ticketing, etc. And the 11.5 kilometer, that lane is carrying about 55,000 people every day in that stretch. Delhi has started in 2008, but a huge backlash by the car lobby and the metro lobby has literally killed BRT in Delhi city. So successful models are there. To metro is considered successful just like that because of air conditioned travel. Now, when you look at passengers, even Delhi metro is not successful, though Delhi metro is crowded. Delhi metro is carrying only 1/3 of what it was supposed to carry as per its network and initial project estimates. No, Jaipur is such an utter failure metro. It's a pink city, historic city, you don't need it. Carrying 15,000 people or so. Do you need a metro? And destroying that city's heritage look and the beauty of the city by this elevated, it's like a flyover. Elevated metro is like a flyover from Miapur to LB Nagar, it's a single flyover. In between you have stations. So to add 4.5 lakh passengers in Hyderabad, you spend 2,000 crores more, buses will be able to carry. Our MMTS is a hugely successful model on the existing railway line. 5 rupees, 10 rupees, people travel long distances. So we have these. Only thing is, each one has to be given that support, incentive, prioritizing, so that it is able to carry more, and people start, opting for that more and more. Unfortunately, in Hyderabad, other than MMTS, I don't have anything else to say as a positive, successful model. Not the metro.
Okay, sir. Moving on to the next question,
Yeah.
sir. During master planning, upgrade of a city, the transport infrastructure is generally planned for 20 years. But eventually it fails when it reaches its stipulated timeline. Does master planning standards need to be revisited or reviewed considering the past examples?
See, what happens is our master plans are basically, they prepare some population projection estimates and some vehicle movement estimates, and the governments which notify the master plan, they never stick to that. They go on changing whatever they want to do it. Keeping that aside, how does one plan for the future? Basically, what we mean is, what is called, transit-oriented development is one concept that has been coming in a big way. You build a huge transport corridor and plan the city accordingly. Now, where you cannot change the land use largely, you see the old MCH area, you just can't change. Kokatpalli, these are all suburban municipalities before. The city has expanded to that. We can't go on changing that. Now, ultimately, transport planning is giving priority to public transport. There is no other way. Road widening may be required to clear some bottlenecks here and there. Yes, it is possible. But without prioritizing public transport and without discouraging private vehicle, especially the car, discouraging can be various disincentives. Congestion pricing, Singapore does, London does, or we cannot say that you cannot buy a car in Indian democracy. Singapore can tell you cannot buy a car. Singapore can frustrate its citizens to buy a car, even if they have money. We can't do that. The only thing we can do is that next 2 hours of peak hours, Amirpet, Lagdikapul Road, I will not allow any private vehicle. That's it. You need tremendous political courage and wisdom to do that. So other than that, go on adding infrastructure as the city grows will not work. It may work a little in the outskirts where city is already built. We cannot go on adding one flyover over the other, one flyover over the other. Now we have a road, flyover, and a metro. In Panjagutta, if you come, you have all the three. And you cannot walk in Panjagutta, even half a kilometer distance, which one should be able to comfortably walk in a city. I take out my car even to go to Model House, which is half kilometer away, because it is so scary to walk and along this. So you like this, we don't know. So master plans, how much one can provide in master plan? You can broadly take care of some non-negotiables, green space, lakes, etc. The rest is water supply, sewage networks have to be laid, transport provision, you cannot go on expanding the roads after a while. Delhi has the best roads and widest roads possible, but we find Delhi one of the most polluted city. And Delhi has master plans, they implement little more rigor. Delhi has the largest network of metro in the city, but Delhi is also one of the most polluted cities because of cars. Apart from the crop residue, smoke that comes, etc. But city itself is congested and polluted because of cars. I believe Delhi has the number of cars that is equal to Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Kolkata combined, or something like that. So that many cars. So I thought I conveyed what I mean.
Yes, sir. There is another one, sir. In Singapore, as you just mentioned, sir, the question is also based on that. In Singapore, a personal car owned buys more tax to the citizen, and affordability to a car is weighed weak compared to using a public transport. So every segment of the society prefers using the public mode, unlike in our city, Hyderabad, or in India. What models can be put to increase usage of public mode? If not metro, then what or how?
Broadly, I covered all these points during presentation. Quickly, assuming that now that metro is there, let us say, but one has to reach the bus stop or a metro station. So you need a footpath to walk. So to encourage a person to reach the public transport point, the bus stop or the metro station, let us say, if I leave my house, I should feel that I can safely walk. A lane is okay, but once I come to the main road, I should be able to safely walk to the bus stop. Let us say buses are carrying huge numbers. And the bus stop should be designed in such a way that, if it is a rain or hot sun, I am comfortably standing there, waiting for the bus. And the particular number of the bus that I want to catch, that bus comes to its designated stop. This is how bus stop should be designed, and the driver should be trained, which doesn't happen here. So what happens is, even if it is 2 kilometers or 5 kilometers, it is not encouraging to me to go to the bus stop and go through that. Sometimes you are standing at one place, bus stop somewhere else ahead, and we run to the bus. There will be 10 people trying to board. This is uncivilized kind of organizing public transportation, and I hold the governments, the political leadership solely responsible for this. You don't see this in other countries or in Singapore or this thing. In India, many cities are like this. Bombay is slightly better. People stand in queue where the bus stops. So without providing this basic design infrastructure, well-designed bus stop where people, these days I am seeing bus stops, air-conditioned bus stops in some places in Hyderabad. Who wants air-conditioned bus stop? You want a safe, comfortable bus stop so that you also have an eye on the coming bus. Nobody wants to spend 1 hour in an AC inside a AC bus stop. No, very poorly designed, very inadequate. There will be one bus stop which wants only a hoarding for advertisement. It is designed for advertisement by the GHMC, and people will be standing in front of the bus stop because nobody can stop there. So very, very poor infrastructure for the passengers here. Metro, once you enter into the metro station, it is okay. But to reach metro station, you should be able to safely walk. We don't have that. So this is one major thing that, and buses can be improved. Good technology has come. Now electric buses are coming where the ride can be very smooth, less polluting. But you should encourage people to come to that. Ticketing system, we have not modernized the ticketing system. Like I was telling, suppose from Amirpet to Himayat Nagar, Lagdikapul is a transit point, one wants to change. Otherwise, only bus. What happens is 113 bus which goes to Uppal will come to Amirpet already crowded, for example, in a peak hour. Now to go to Himayat Nagar, I had to struggle to get into that same bus. If I get down at Lagdikapul and try to change another bus, I have to buy another ticket, which makes it expensive for me. Whereas if I have only single ticket marked Amirpet Himayat Nagar, I get down, I take any bus going to Lagdikapul, get down and take any bus that is coming from, that is going towards Himayat Nagar with the same ticket. No, our system doesn't permit that. The moment you are changing the bus, you have to buy a new ticket, which is expensive. And change of buses. You get on here, Secunderabad, again for the benefit of the audience. At Secunderabad station, city buses today stop at 8 different places. In front of the bus stop, Tarnaka bus stop, Regimental bus stop, Bazaar bus stop, Uppal side, Sangeet tax that side. So if from Amirpet, if I take 10H, I want to go to Tarnaka by bus. Now there is metro, but before this, or to RTC Crossroad or some other, you get down at one point, then you have to walk 2 furlongs to catch another bus. It doesn't encourage a passenger to take the bus. So the present Gandhi Hospital land, which is now given to a metro station, it is Secunderabad West or something. Now the bus stop metro station's name, 10 acres of land, some 10 years back, was advertised for a public PPP partnership for an integrated bus terminal, so that all buses starting from Secunderabad station should start from there. That would have been extremely convenient for passengers to change buses from somebody coming from Tarnaka, take another bus to go towards Boyanpalli or whatever. Now with this metro coming in, this metro rail grabbed the 10 acres of Gandhi Hospital land and put a metro station there. So the bus passengers, which is a huge, Secunderabad station caters to put 1 lakh people every day. And bus passengers continue to struggle, getting scattered around. That kind of system doesn't encourage people to opt for public transport. So infrastructure and a good service, reliable service, these are very important. Singapore does that. You buy just 1 ticket, bus comes to the colony in your residential areas, whether a passenger is there in the bus or not, it just keeps going, and it takes the call, it connects the colony to the metro station. So what they call interchange stations. So whether there is a passenger in the bus or not, it keeps moving between that station and the colony. Some buses keep going far, but connection to the metro station. So just buy 1 ticket and you keep changing buses, metro. So that is what encourages a passenger. Not buying a ticket every time, which makes it expensive and also cumbersome. Okay.
Yes, sir. The next question, sir. Transportation issues have been a hot discussion in many debates. But what's the actual ratio of issues raised versus actual problem solving? Sir, could you quote an example of any city where it's been proven successful with respect to transport master planning?
Well, this is slightly difficult to answer in the sense you won't be having statistics on how many issues raised, how many solved. These are very local level, city level. And a lot depends on to what extent is the city government or the city administration sensitive to solving the issue, and to what extent there is a platform to aid these grievances of citizens. Hyderabad, I consider there is none. If at all they hold sometime, it may be to fulfill a requirement, not with any sincerity to solve the problem. Where there are activist groups are strong and the city administration is strong, like Pune, for example. I interact with Pune civil society activists. There is a good deal of interaction. How many they solve, how many they don't solve may depend on various other factors, local factors. But today, in terms of transport master planning, everywhere, even if there were plans before, Metros are taking over all transport planning. These are all thrust from the top, from Delhi, and all political parties are in favor of the metro. So in Hyderabad also we keep hearing about extension of metro from Miyapur to Lingampalli, phase 2 of the metro. We don't find hear anything about a bus lane in Hyderabad, because bus lane is less contractor friendly. So extension of big projects, we talk about more SRDP. We had interaction with a strategic road development project which Telangana government talks about, is nothing but a flyover building project. So wherever you find an interaction, a chance to interact, we can only find fault with them. So next time they don't even call you. So very difficult to say that how many have been solved. I can tell you Hyderabad's frustration. There was an organization called Right to Walk Foundation. One of our friends, Kantimati Kannan, she's a MBA a management professional who took retirement. 5 years she fought with JHM, because footpaths and traffic signals are a responsibility of the corporation, not traffic police. Traffic signal functioning is the responsibility of GHMC, not traffic police in our system. Traffic police only regulates, but the traffic signals functioning, installation, repairs, zebra lines, these are the responsibility of GHMC. 5 years she fought. The State Human Rights Commission, Lokayukta, High Court, GHMC. So frustrating, so frustrating. Today she literally gave up. Said, you just can't affect a change in this city especially. Similar level of effort in Bangalore would have made a lot more difference. In Pune would have made a lot more difference. I personally went to the ACP Traffic Hyderabad, Anil Kumar. Now I don't know whether it's the same man. They keep getting transferred. To meet him, you need recommendation from some other IPS officer whom you know. Otherwise, here the officers think they are too big here. I gave him a 2-page note about pedestrian problems. Asked him personally, can you come with me? We will walk from Srinagar Colony Road from Amirpet to SR Nagar and spend 15 minutes at SR Nagar Junction. How difficult it is for people to cross the road. This is my personal experience about 1 year back.
Yes.
Obviously, he is a city additional commissioner. He doesn't care. He thinks it is offending to him if I ask him to come with me. I'm prepared to walk with you. They don't like it. So he sent his one inspector. So with Panjagutta inspector and one inspector sent by him, I went with them. 1 hour I spent with them. They said they have no answer. They don't want to reinstall the signal to ensure safe passage of safe crossing of pedestrians. Footpath is not in our domain. We sympathize with you. We are with you on footpath. But why don't you install a signal here for passengers, pedestrians to cross the road? There again, the signal installation is GHMC responsibility. We have written a letter. We write a letter. This is how system is functioning. Very frustrating. Very insensitive administrations. Very frustrating. Only when there is an accident, suddenly everybody will talk about it for the next 1 week, and then it goes like that. So I can't say about in other cities how many were raised, how many were solved, difficult. But in Hyderabad, I can say that effort will be very frustrating. There are no lack of efforts in Hyderabad. But it is so frustrating that, after a point we give up. There is something called, worn out. You get worn out, burnout, and frustrating. Is it hell with this kind of attitude? That is what the administration drives you to frustration in Hyderabad.
Yes. So there's another one. Why don't policymakers think of underground transport system, which would have lesser impact in the environment? And is this a feasible approach in the current scenario, complementing the concrete jungle that has been created around us?
See, underground, only the metro can go if it is required. Buses don't have to go because this thing. So when Hyderabad metro issue also came up, this is what I was one of the very strong critiques of it, thinking that this will only destroy the city. and it will the number of passengers to travel by that will be very small. Why I say destroy will be, we are destroying the streets of the city. Streets are the beauty of the city. Wide footpaths with good, walking stretches. The European cities, one enjoys the city life is because of wonderful footpaths and parks. So there was a talk about, for at least about 20 kilometers, Hyderabad metro can go underground, so that you don't spoil the beauty of the city, beauty of the heritage. Say in front of the assembly, Ravindra Bharati, Nampalli Secretariat, MJ Market. These are all cities' historic places. Sultan Bazaar. I didn't put it again to reduce the length of this thing. And so if any of the participants are living in Hyderabad, I would request them make a casual visit to Sultan Bazaar. It is a historic bazaar of the city, 150-year-old or whatever. There, at the Jain Mandir, which is known to be more than 100-year-old, the metro viaduct and the Jain Mandir, they literally touch. Well, they didn't want to demolish Jain Mandir, but you have to build the metro. So what happens is, in course of next 10 to 15 years, many of those buildings in the close vicinity of the metro corridor will simply collapse due to the vibrations caused by the train. So these are the areas where underground metro should be possible. In Delhi's Chandni Chowk, it is underground. The entire New Delhi area, the Lutyens Delhi, it is underground. Bangalore is all elevated, but one officer, sensible officer, ensured that the Vidhan Saudha, Bangalore High Court, the core heritage belt, it goes underground. So it took some time. So what? It can take some more time. It takes a little more costly. But for a 100-year-old project, an additional cost now should not be a problem. But again, it depends on your political will. I don't care what happens to Sultan Bazaar. I don't care what happens to in front of the assembly or Gun Park. I want the metro. So underground is little more time taking, probably 30% more expensive because of you have to maintain electricity, lighting, oxygen, etc. So I don't want to do that, and I want to elevate it. So the moment a political decision is taken only for elevated metro, it just goes like that. So we have the difference. Chennai has a good deal of metro underground. Bangalore has the core, about 6 to 8 kilometers underground. Delhi has a lot underground in the Lutyens part and the old city, Delhi. Hyderabad, nothing. So, please.
So, there's another one. Sir, is there a chance that there could be at least a way that we can have a dedicated lane in our Hyderabad for ambulances, buses, fire engines, or any other emergency services? Do you think it can be planned for?
See, the BRT, what's called bus rapid transit system, bus lanes that I was talking about, the bus lanes are used by emergency vehicles also, because there is a lane already earmarked and buses keep moving, carrying passengers. Now, to keep a lane exclusively for buses itself, the political system is not willing. Buses which carry lakhs of people. So to create a lane only for emergency vehicles, because emergency vehicle, one may go in 20 minutes, there may be no emergency vehicle in the next half an hour. So road remains vacant. It's most unlikely to happen. But if there is a lane to the buses, which is easy to provide, which our people don't want to provide, the same lane can be used by the emergency vehicles also, which is done in other cities wherever there are lanes.
So one more thing. What could be the future of traffic module if COVID forces us for more work from home options? For example, like there is already a drastic shift in traffic volumes from high-tech areas to different areas, as already companies have asked people to work from home as a permanent solution.
This is what I was trying to quickly speak in my last slide, post-COVID city.
Yes, sir.
Assuming that, even if COVID goes and lockdowns are lifted in the next few months, it is expected that 30 to 40% of the workforce, IT workforce, will continue to work from home. it's happening across the world. Even in Silicon Valley, Google has allowed its employees to work from home till next June, 1 year, for next 1 year. So cities exist, some transportation system has to exist. You need service staff who will repair your fans or electricity or domestic, your car driver or whatever, even if one has to go out. So there will be a need for transportation. Now here, the mega transportation projects like metros will lose their relevance if more people start working from home. So the governments cannot justify that I still want to have a long flyover because no more cars will come. Maybe 10%, 20% of what was projected only will come. So why do you invest that money? So what the cities need is now to provide bus-based transport. It required improve the infrastructure of transport, bus stops, footpaths, so that cities can also have less pollution. To go to 1 kilometer comfortably where I can walk, I don't have to take out a car, personal vehicle, I mean. So make the COVID can, if the cities learn right lessons and show enough wisdom and vision, cities can become a lot more pedestrian friendly, cycle friendly, public transportation friendly, not necessarily the flyovers and metro rail friendly. There will be no requirement and large number of jobs are done from home. People need to go out for socialization. There will be small, low paid employees who travel longer distances because they cannot stay in the core city due to expensive rents or whatever. Even if rents reduce, it's still expensive for them. So we need a certain level of bus-based public transport required, but governments can invest now making these infrastructure more friendly. Street infrastructure, what we call, or street furniture. Architects play a big role. Pune, I believe this is architecture college. I visited this college once when Vasanta Shobha Garu was the faculty. I gave a talk to students on the metro, why I was critical of the metro in this college. And in Pune, architects play a big role in influencing the city government about how the streets can be designed, how bus stops can be designed. So I wish architects in Hyderabad come together. The only architect we feel we keep interacting now and then is Mr. Shankar Narayan, a conservation architect. So we wish more architect professionals, faculty, students come forward to say that this is how the street should be designed, not this existing street only. This is how bus stops can be, which can encourage more people to use the infrastructure and the service. So I wish that to happen more the coming days.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we would like to thank Professor Ramchandraya for his kind words of wisdom. We thank you, sir, for the detailed and analytical case studies, which has helped us understand urban transportation in conjunction with community from the perception or the perspective of our city, Hyderabad. I think it was an excellent session, and the ideas and thoughts that you have shared with us have been very informative to all the participants. And I think it will help us to think what we can do to build a better environment to live in. So I think it was a beautiful session, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste to everybody.
Sir, good morning. I just missed you. This is Raj Reddy. Thanks for accepting our invitation and very wonderful lesson. You expressed without any force, without any fear, you expressed your thoughts excellently. And I hope the planners and the architects are enjoyed. I just wanted to say, the public transport system, the one we are talking about, the mass transport system, the metro. The metro become a class transport system, not a mass transport system. When you take UK, when you purchase a ticket of £6, you can roam whole London in one day, and you can also enter bus. You can use any transport with the same ticket. But whereas in Hyderabad, metro is something like which will loot you. You know, you're just going to go into the metro to loot yourself.
It's true. It's true. Agree with you.
So every station you get down, you have to pay the money. So the simple theory,
True.
the mass transport supposed to be very, very cheap, and the people should enjoy it. And you will have less. See, it is a cyclic process. You say, I'm not getting money. How do you get the money if you are busy? The people, those who are going to the IT, only going into the metro, or those who are coming for a tourist purpose, they are just going into the metro for a ride, just for a ride. Whereas the public transport system is supposed to be a regular system, whereby a middle class, a lower middle class person should enjoy, use the benefits of public transport system, the mass transport system. So that is my opinion, sir. And thank you very much. We will be in touch base with you, sir, and have a nice time.
Thank you.
Thank you from CDI as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
We thank all the participants. We have the next session at 12 o'clock, and the next session
Please,
is